Hello, everybody, and congratulations on your continued work on the future of work and technology. It's an extremely important subject, as you well know. I would strongly recommend that for those who have not read yet the three scenarios, I'd ask you to do that because that gives you a lot of the context and the detail and the grit in there. It also helps make the point that the change may happen once it starts changing more in South Africa faster than people think, and why that would be the case. So, as you know, there's a lot of workshops done around the world, including your good workshop as well. Congratulations again on that. And I would say there was easily several hundred suggestions came out of these workshops. So naturally, many of the suggestions were repeated by other countries as well. So we took all those hundreds of suggestions and distilled them down to 93, still a lot of suggestions. We organized those into 5 sections in government and business and so forth. And you're aware of all that, I think. And then we did a Delphi questionnaire on each of the 5 sections. And so there would be like only maybe 20 or so recommendations per Delphi questionnaire. So it wasn't too difficult to do. Because if we sent out a questionnaire with 93 questions, somebody in that audience might have shot me. And I don't want to do that. So, but then all these suggestions were rated in terms of feasibility and effect and comments. And the comments are the important stuff. Because what we've done is we took the comments on each of the 93 suggestions. And again, there's a lot of overlap as well, so we distilled that down. But still, it was about a page per each of the 93 suggestions. Things like, well, if you're going to do that, you got to consider this, or this will not work unless you do that. So the content in the report about the actions is really useful for people who actually want to implement something. It's good advice from around the world on each of the actions. So I was asked to make a couple of suggestions here. These are not empirical. These are my own random suggestions, some that I think they're important. One is I think that South Africa should make increasing intelligence an objective of education. Right now, around the world, ministries of education have increasing knowledge, good, and making good citizens, okay. But we now know that the brain learns better by certain methods than others. We're learning a lot about how the brain works, but we're not necessarily applying it. Ask an average teacher how they apply what we're learning about cognitive science with how they teach in the classroom. Not a whole lot of answers yet, but that should be there. It's just like we know a lot about building the body, physical education. We know a lot about how to make you a better runner. We know, but we also can now learn brain functioning because the future is not going to get less complex. It's going to get more complex. We need more and more intelligent people. And there's a lot of methods out there, and some of that, it's in the book, to do this. But see, if a ministry says increasing intelligence is an objective education, all of a sudden, teacher training schools, teacher colleges have to start to say, well, how do I teach teachers to improve brain functioning? How do I do that? And that'll focus a lot of research and improve South Africa, and improve all countries if we do that. Another one is there's a lot of data banks on jobs around the world. I assume that there's something like this in South Africa as well. But what I'd like to do is upgrade it a little bit to say all businesses are allowed to put in to the data bank what skills they need next, whether it's 1 year, 3 years, whatever it is. So in a sense, it's like free advertising for recruitment. And then what training that they would suggest to get that. And labor unions that know which jobs are going to be made obsolete sooner or going down would be encouraged to tell their members, go check out the database, see what skills you think you'll be interested in, and then sign up for the training program. Now, who pays for these training programs? Who creates them? Well, I think the business ought to have a hand in paying for it because they're getting future talent, but also paying a little bit on participating in what the training ought to be. They may know some good places for that or how that's done online or whatever. I think government should pay for part of it because that's you continuing tax-paying citizens this way. And the individual should also pay a little bit, not a whole lot. So if you have the individual, the business, the labor, and the government all paying for it together, then the cost of the whole system is reduced per category. Another one I would suggest is creating a telenation, Tele South Africa, because I'm told that some South Africans are leaving, and there's an effort to say I'm staying. Okay, that's good, but maybe the people who have left could go onto a website, the Tele South Africa website, and match up with the development needs in South Africa. Because a lot of times you got foreign people like myself coming in that don't know enough about South Africa. But if you have South Africans who've already left South Africa and they're in London or wherever they happen to be, they can match up, just like computer dating service. So if someone, let's say if I'm a South African, I have this product. This is what it looks like. This is what it costs, and I want to sell it in London, but I don't know how to get there. So let's say I'm a South African living in London. For me, it's not a big deal to find out who's interested, what places it might buy this. So think of the external South African brain hooked up with the internal South African brain to develop South Africa. Tele South Africa. Think of computer dating, but for the development of South Africa. Another one is an awful lot of online education. And I know not everybody's got an email account. But certainly the universities can open up possibilities, community centers, libraries, and so forth. Let's really encourage people to take advantage of online education. There's almost nothing you can't learn today, free of charge in many cases. So when people say, well, we don't have a great education system, or we don't have this, we don't have that, get the access. It's there. We've got to make a major effort to get people to sit in front of computers and take courses free of charge and figure out how to schedule it for people in 24-hour systems or whatever is necessary to get going on it. Now, people talk a lot about STEM education, science, technology, engineering education. That's a good idea. I'm in favor of that, but that's not going to take care of all the future jobs of the world. It would be wise to think of a new way of thinking about the future of jobs. Yes, there'll be many conventional jobs, but fewer of those conventional jobs. Yes, there'll be some in science and technology education, but not everybody's going to be making a living there. What we can also take a look at is how you connect to markets rather than to a job locally. The whole world is going to be connected to the internet. Over half the world is connected today. So the idea is to find out how you connect to markets around the world for your skills, your interests, and small charge, because you're going to have a lot of people in a small charge, and you can make a living out of being yourself, self-actualization, so to speak. Let's say I want to go to the Smithsonian Institution. I could send out a note saying, who wants to go with me on a video conference in the Smithsonian Institution? Send out the notification. Maybe only 50 people in the whole world would like to go. All right. That's $50. $50 for a lunch is pretty good. It gives me a lot of change left over. I might want to do other kinds of things that other people would pay $1 or $2 for around the world. So the idea is, instead of only going to a job locally, which is still a big deal, but we're talking about going off into the future, think in terms of practicing today on how you connect up with people who would pay a small amount of money for what you're interested in doing or sharing anyway. I'll bet you there's a lot of people who would be interested in what are the different forms of traditional medicine in South Africa. How many people? Maybe 1% of the world? 1% of 7 billion people is a lot of people. There's all kinds of stuff that people are interested in South Africa. They would pay some small amount of money. And you can have a little video conference, and they pay you on a PayPal or some sort of system. So we can start to make a living out of being ourselves, how we want to be anyway, what we want to do anyway. But the new idea is how you connect up and monetize that on a global basis. And that's a future form of a self-actualization economy. We're not there yet, but that's a movement in that direction. So I wish you have a good conference. Happy to answer some questions on the phone. And that's the end of this recording.